Welcome to another season of Not Your Average Joel, the podcast where we talk about a little bit of a lot, from the good to the bad and everything in between. My podcast is all about having fun, but it's also all about bringing awareness and addressing the elephants in the room that nobody wants to talk about. I hope that y'all enjoyed this episode. Not Your Average Joel starts right now. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Not Your Average Joel. And Happy New Year, by the way. I know it's been a while since I've seen everybody. Last time I saw everybody, it was right before Christmas time. So I hope that everybody had an amazing Christmas, good Happy New Year, and I hope that everybody's New Year is starting off great. I know by the time y'all see this, it's going to be Valentine's Day. So I guess Happy Valentine's Day to all of y'all out there, and hope y'all have an amazing day with your loved ones. So today we are starting off season 5 strong. We have an amazing guest. Of course, she does not need no introduction really because she's been on here many, many times, and I love getting to have her on here. Because we just talk about so many good topics, and today is going to be another great topic. So I definitely want to welcome back Caitlyn to the channel. It's always so good to have her, and it's a great way to a good guest to start on season 5. So welcome back and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I always enjoy being here. I'm glad you asked me to come back.
Yes, absolutely. I definitely love getting to have you here. And also, I wish that, even though it's cold right now, but at some point I'm like wishing that we can do one there at the lake again, at Shadow Lake. I love when we get to go there.
Oh, yes. I went out there earlier after church and it was just so cold. I was like, absolutely not.
Yeah, with that lake and that wind, it's like, oh, like nope, no thanks.
Cold today.
Yeah, a little too cold. So I'm sure everybody's wondering what the topic is about, but I'm sure y'all could see it on the title as you're watching it on YouTube or any of the podcast streaming platforms. But I do want to give y'all a quick couple of updates, right quick, things that are happening with my podcast channel. So I do want to mention that at one point I was having some of my clips on TikTok, but I actually decided after some consideration that I didn't really have time to do all the editing for TikTok because you have to cut it down to a certain amount, and sometimes just that little amount isn't enough in my opinion. So I just decided just to completely get rid of the TikTok, page for my podcast. So I'm not even going to worry about doing TikToks, but I do have something that I'm putting in place of that, which is a website actually. So it's still in the works. I haven't fully completed it, but by the time y'all watch this, it will be complete here in the next couple of weeks. So once this episode ends, you'll hear the outro, like where I thank y'all for listening to the podcast and all of that, and you'll hear the website's name on there. So definitely stay tuned for that. So no TikTok, but we got the website in. So, and also one other thing that I was going to mention, was going to have this happen earlier for me was I was going to have more pictures on my wall back here, but I accidentally printed out the wrong size photos, that I was going to add to my travel wall. So, maybe next episode y'all will see more photos behind me and, get see where all I've traveled to. So especially these new ones that are going to be on my wall is from 2023. So I think that's about all the updates that I have. So I'm going to go ahead and tell y'all about today's topic of the day, and that is on family. So there are two big reasons why I want to talk about family. For one, today, right now for us, is not Valentine's Day, but for y'all, when y'all watch this, it's going to be Valentine's Day. And when I think about Valentine's Day, I think about like love and stuff like that. And since I don't have a spouse, right now to kind of celebrate Valentine's Day with, my family takes that place as of right now. So, I definitely wanted to bring something in relation to like love and stuff like that since it is Valentine's Day. And then another reason why I wanted to talk about families is because we know that Satan is the god of confusion, little g god, the god of confusion, and he likes to bring division among many people. Like in the sinful world, there's a lot of division when it comes to things like politics and like religion and gender and sadly even race. And those are just a few things among many things that Satan tries to bring division amongst people. And of course, Satan loves to go after the families, and so much so that I was doing some research and some statistics, like looking up facts about families, and some of the stuff that I saw were pretty sad when you think about it in reality. So before I tell y'all those statistics, of course, we know that God is against division when it comes to families, and well, really, or against anyone at all, but especially with families, because we know, like in the Word of God, like in Exodus 20, we see about the Ten Commandments, we see about honoring your father and your mother, and then also we see in like Proverbs about train up a child in the way that he or she should go. So like those are big things. And then another verse stuck out to me, and I actually have it over here. It's Proverbs 15:20, and it says, "A wise son brings joy to his father, but a foolish man despises his mother." So I think that just flat out basically is clearly pointed out that like God is against division. He doesn't want anybody to hate his father or mother in that way to where it completely goes against like what God is, which is love. So, and if we are uh if we are to be like God and we are to be more like Christ, and I think hate should never even be something that we should practice at all. So kind of going to these statistics, is like I said, I only have a few statistics, but it's a pretty, I guess, sad when you think about it. So this first one is according to childstats.gov. It says only 65% of children under 18 have lived with both parents here in the US. So just to think about that, if you do the math, that's 35% of children that are under the age of 18 that has been in a broken home, basically, whether they've had a single mother or father, or even like just a single legal guardian, like maybe a grandparent. So just to think that 65, even though that is a big number out of 100, 35% of children, that's millions of children out there that don't have the luxury that some of us have, that have both parents in our lives, and that we've been able to grow up with both of our parents. So that's a sad reality when you think about that. And then a lot of that, of course, could be due to divorce, which another statistic that I see, according to divorce.com, it says that the United States has the sixth highest divorce rate in the world, with 40 to 50% of married couples filing for a divorce. So if we're using that number 50, it just makes me think of that basically one out of every other married couple is gonna get a divorce at some point. And that's really sad. And to me, what was even more shocking is that the United States is the sixth highest divorce. So I'm considering like wondering what are the other five? Like it's gotta be terrible, like in other areas, for just divorce to just be such a major thing. And I'm sure that many people that are listening to this, or even Caitlyn, even myself, know people that have grown up in a single parent home. So it's sad when you think about all of that. And the last statistic that I have is according to Forbes.com. It actually says the number one reason for divorce is actually not due to infidelity. It's actually due to lack of commitment, which it makes sense in a way, to me. I first, when I read it, I was kind of shocked because I was thinking, oh, it's got to be infidelity, cheating, all of that, but it was actually just lack of commitment. Just people just don't care anymore. They're just willing to give up at any moment over very little things. What you think was a small argument can lead to you going into court, ready to divorce your spouse. And it's just sad when you think about it. And I know that, you know, there's only like adultery is definitely a big part, it's biblical reason to get a divorce, but, Satan likes to justify, you know, he likes to embrace divorce. He wants people to give up, and that's where I see one out of every other couple ends up getting a divorce, which kind of actually leads me to my first question that I want to ask Caitlin, and of course I want to give input myself. But my first question is, why do you feel like Satan is so determined to divide families?
because it leaves us vulnerable. God made us as creatures who need other people. We need that community. We need that fellowship. We need those relationships. He made us that way. He made us so that we would need a relationship with him and we would need a relationship with other people. I mean, when God made Adam, he saw that it wasn't good for Adam to be alone. I mean, he said that in the beginning. He's in Genesis 1. He said that it is not good for man to be alone. I will make him a helper. And he made Eve. Um, as we all know, Eve was formed beginning with the rib that he took out of Adam's chest, and that's where Eve came from. He used the dust and the clay and that rib to form her, but she was made so that Adam wouldn't be alone. We're not meant to be alone, whether it be in relationships with family members, whether it be in relationships with romantic partners, whether it be relationships with people we go to church with. We're not meant to be alone. Now I understand that there are some people who are more introverted, don't like to be around a lot of people, but they still have their relationships. They still have people that they communicate with, that they talk with. It keeps you from being as vulnerable as when you're by yourself. Like I know that I'm more likely to be tempted to commit a sin in one way or another when I'm by myself. That's one thing about one of these days I will be living by myself unless God gives me a husband. When I finish grad school and move out of my parents' house, I'll be living by myself. And it leaves being alone and not having community, it leaves off accountability. If there's nobody around to hold you accountable, um then you're susceptible to the devil's antics. A lot of people say, oh, well, Jesus was by himself and he was able to fight off the devil. Jesus is God. Jesus was able to do that because he was God. We can fight off the devil when we have God. I'm not saying that we have to have other people to fight off the devil, but I'm saying that God uses the people around us to remind us who He is, remind us what He has done, remind us of what He expects from us, to encourage us, to love us, to admonish us when we need it. And He starts that with family. He gives us other people along the way too, but that starts with family. Your parents, and it's one thing that we see in the school nowadays. Parents aren't acting as disciplinarians anymore. They want to be their kid's friend. And I'm like, that's how you raise and I say raise lightly because they're not really raising them, but that's where children who think that they can get away with anything, that's where adults who think they can get away with anything come from. It comes from lack of discipline in the home. Thankfully, I was raised by parents who believed in discipline. And I know that my choices have consequences because of my parents. You're not just telling a child, oh, don't do this, you're going to get in trouble. It also sets you up to realize that later on in life, you're going to get in trouble, whether it be by a boss, by police, by somebody in authority, an authority figure. You're going to get in trouble if you do something wrong, or if you do something against the law, or if you do something to hurt somebody else. You're going to get in trouble for that. And I think that family is really important for that, because family, um, it's I don't want to say a soft discipline, but like if you learn young that you have family, and that you have these people who love you enough to tell you when you're wrong, then later on in life you'll be able to revert back to these people. And now I understand not everybody has the same kind of family like I was blessed to be raised with. I was raised in a family that was very loving, is very encouraging. We were always there. I was raised that family was the most important thing, which is almost true. It should be God first and then
Mhm.
family right here. And I understand that. But growing up, I was taught family's the most important thing, family's the most important thing. So when it comes down to it, I know if I can't depend on anybody else on this earth, not God, obviously, but if I can't depend on anybody else on this earth, then I have my family. I have God and I have my family, and I have my parents, I have my sister, I have my Aunt Lynn, I have other aunts and uncles, and my grandmothers and my great grandmother, like I have them here to love me and to encourage me and to be there for me when I need them. But I think it's really most important to have family around you, to have people around you like that, because it keeps you from being as vulnerable to the devil.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. That keyword vulnerability is like huge in this because, like you said, whenever we are separated from others, like you said, more than likely, and of course, we have God that will give us strength through those moments when we're alone. But at the same time, we are more than likely. I can definitely, attest and admit that there are times where I've been alone, and that's more than likely where I would consider falling into sin or actually fall into the sin. And it's because there is no, like you said, accountability there, and there's nobody there to, back you up, or like to hold you accountable and to tell you, like, hey, this probably isn't the best thing to do right now. Like, if you do this, it's going to lead to regret. So, yeah, it's definitely I love that you brought that up, and, like, to add on to some of that, there's that quote that, this goes something along the words of, like, "Home is where the heart is," and, like, and I think of how Satan is after our hearts. Like, of course, our hearts, as a Christ follower, we long for Jesus, but, like, there are times where Satan will try to get into your head, and then he's going to try to go for the heart, which is the most important part. And I feel like whenever you fight or argue with a stranger, it doesn't feel good, but it doesn't sting as bad as it is whenever you're fighting or arguing with a family member. I feel like whenever that fighting happens between family members, it hurts worse, and it makes it to me more of a bigger deal. Like definitely for me, it's like mentally, emotionally affects me, and even physically. Like I get all like shaky, and even I mean, I'm really just not a confrontational person in general, but whenever it's especially with family, that's where like it really hits. And then, like I said, whenever that tension or that division happens, that's where the enemy will try to come in and try to kick you while you're down and try to like put all of these things in your head and try to even give you bad thoughts about that person, maybe that you got into an argument with. So I feel like it just Satan wants you to have focus on everything but God, and if he can use a family member, maybe it could have been a small argument over like who used the last of the paper towels and didn't put a new one on the rack. It could be something like that. And it starts off like you start arguing about it, and then all of a sudden, like these thoughts coming out of nowhere, and then you feel like you end up saying stuff that you regret. Like it becomes a bigger deal than just paper towels at that point. It becomes more about, oh, you've done me wrong in this way. You've always done this. You've always lied about this. And it brings a lot of tension. So I feel like, yeah, the enemy will just do anything that he can to make you focused on anything but the Lord because he wants to see, because he knows that the word of God, it says about unification and being unified and the come together. And of course, the love is like huge in the word of God. And, anything that is against that, of course, he is ready to throw that in our heads and our hearts. So I feel like, yeah, once he hits the heart, and like hits where it hurts, like that's where that vulnerability comes in, and that's where sometimes we do fall into getting off that path to where we should be, even if we don't fully fall off the path with the Lord, but like we are kind of slowly diverting off of the path, and like and eventually, if we don't catch it early on, it's gonna really make things worse to where you could be super far off. But one good news about that is at least it's never too late to give your life back to Jesus, and it's never too late to make things right with someone. But at the same time, just seeing how far you go, how far you are from God, it can be crazy, and it can be just like I guess I think about the example that I've heard at church before. Like my pastor brought up this analogy, I guess, to like, sometimes you're in the water at the beach and like you're laying in maybe one of those nice, like comfy inner tubes, and you're just like floating and floating, and then all of a sudden you're laying there just for 5 minutes and you look up and like the condo where you're staying is like a mile away. And it's like that's kind of where it could be with this situation if you let it happen, if you let tension and bitterness and especially with families, that is definitely not it's a recipe for disaster, that's for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah, and then like something else that I was thinking of is I came up upon like a verse in First Timothy in chapter 3. It's verses 4 and 5. Verse 4, it says that he must manage his own family well and see that his children obey him, and he must do so in a manner worthy of full respect. And then verse 5 says, if someone does not know how to manage his own household, how will he care for the church? And kind of going back to what we've been talking about, like with the quote about home is where the heart is, and then as well as like the whole idea of accountability and discipline. I think that, whenever I think about the example, and I'm sure that many people have heard this example before, but like some people, like parents, will just like drop their kids off at church and expect the church to teach them like
Yeah,
about God. But like in reality, all of the hard work should be done at home. Like it as yeah, like as parents, we should, well, I'm not a parent, but like as parents,
yeah,
you should be willing to instill the word of God into your children. And when you're not doing that and you're just fully letting someone else do that, it makes it to where the kids not probably not going to be as receptive or as willing to listen. And even like Caitlin was mentioning about like teachers, like if you're not going to instill stuff like, respect authority, respect your teachers and just listen, don't be talking in class and stuff like that. And then, nowadays, like she was saying, nowadays it's almost like there's no getting onto your kid to like, do better in school. It's more of I'm here to defend my kid. What are you doing wrong? Not what's my kid doing wrong.
mhm,
And it's a sad reality, and that's kind of why I wanted to talk about this whole family situation, because the whole structure of family is being corrupted little by little to where it's now gotten to a point to where things are just different even from when we were kids. I mean, like that was not too long ago when we were kids. I mean, like I was I mean, I'm 30 now, so like even if I consider myself a kid under 18, that was only like 12 years ago. Like, and
yeah,
just to think about how I feel like there used to be a level of respect for authority, for your teacher, for your boss nowadays, but now I feel like we've gotten so entitled and feel like everything is like basically we whatever we say goes. Like the kids are the boss of the parents now, and it's just so backwards. And that's why I like to talk about topics like this, because it's almost like this is the elephant in the room and it's time to address the elephant in the room. And this is definitely where I wanted to make it known that, of course, this is all part of Satan's plan.
mhm.
And I hope that this helps out a family one by one.
I mean, it's easy to ensnare children more than it is adults, but when adults aren't raised or when children aren't raised, they turn are raised correctly, they turn into adults who struggle with these things. They struggle. I mean, you see it all the time on the news of people, and I'm not trying to judge men at all, but a lot of time it tends to be more men, and it's because like the family structure has been broken down where there's a lot of families don't have a man in the home. And so the
Mhm.
men get out there and they've had no example of what a man should be like. And the next thing you know, you've got them out on the road or out on the streets and they're doing they're doing drugs, or they're becoming alcoholics, or they don't know how to treat women respectfully, or they don't know how to treat other people respectfully, and they have no respect for authority figures like police. And that's part of how people end up getting killed by police, is because they're not respecting those police officers. And it all starts at home with the family dynamic. What is that family dynamic? The importance of family is so much more than just in childhood. It affects someone's whole life. It all starts at home. It all stems from home. It all has a root in the home. I understand that there are different circumstances, there are different things. There might be some kids who are raised in a two-parent home, and it's a great home. It's a great home, great situation, and the child gets in gets into drugs, or in the wrong friend group and gets into drugs or something, and that affects their life. I understand that there are different situations, but most of the time those things come out of homes that either don't have both parents, or they have both parents, but the parents are abusive to each other or to the children. And I'm not talking about physically abusive. I'm talking about verbally abusive. I'm talking about emotionally abusive, mentally abusive, all of that. If there is not a good dynamic, a good relationship between a husband and a wife, it affects their children. If there's not two parents in the home, and if there's not a good relationship between those two parents, it affects the children, period, whether people want to admit it or not. And it affects those children all the way through the rest of their life. Now, sure, those kids, there are opportunities for those kids to say, I'm not going to let how I was raised, or I'm not going to let my past define the rest of my life. But not all kids, and not all kids that have been in those situations are going to have the mental stamina to be able to do that when they get older.
Yeah, and one thing to kind of add on to that is I do agree, like when it comes to like the whole like disobedience and like no respect for authority. I do see where it is a lot more men that do it than women, and a lot of it is because there is usually no father figure that is in the home. So, and not that women can't do what men can do, but there are some things that like that a father could teach, well more, maybe they're more well versed in a certain area than women. So it can be, it could be anything. Like, so it could be how to respect your wife. It could be how to provide for your family. And, it could be so many different situations with that. And when there's no father figure there, they have to just go based off what they see through their mom. And if, she's not teaching how a man should act because she isn't a man, like she can only talk from a female's perspective, it may be harder for them to grasp, and it just makes them create their own definition of, oh, like this is how you treat a woman. Is no respect for them, just treat them like they're just a piece of meat, and just all kind of different scenarios out of that. So I do feel like a lot of the issues do come from people with like single parent homes, and it seems like most of the time there are times when I'm sure that there is a single father household, but it seems like most of the time it is primarily a single mother that is trying to raise her sons in this society, and in it usually long term it backfires, to where because I didn't have a male figure in our life, when another male figure like a teacher, a principal, a police officer kind of tries to, tell them to do something, they're more defiant just because they're thinking like, oh, you're not my dad. I don't have to listen to what you have to say. And that it just, there's no level of respect there anymore. And like I said, mothers can teach all of that, but whenever a son hears it from his father, it hits different, like than hearing it from his mother. And I feel like that's the key thing to me, is like just seeing that a lot of this comes from broken homes, or like you said, from people that maybe have both parents, but like their parents may be always talking down to them, making them feel like they're worthless and just in a way just they're never their biggest cheerleader. They're always their biggest critic and like they're just ready to take them down and unfortunately that's reality for a lot of people, a lot of kids out there, even in that 65% that I mentioned that have both parents and may not always be, rainbows and, cotton candy and stuff like that. It may not always be great moments. Those could even be terrible moments. And I'm even like I guess curious of out of that 65% that have both parents, like how much of that is like a healthy level of like a good relationship with both parents because it could very well maybe a lot less, it could be a big number where there's like a broken or estranged relationship with a parent to where by the time they turn 18 they want like nothing to do with that parent and that's often something that I see nowadays too, where many young people, I feel like they just cut off their parents, like just like that. Like there's no emotional attachment there. They're just willing to just cut them off. And sometimes it can be for the good if they're like a very toxic person, but then sometimes it could be just because they it could be really any reason, so I can't even really think of a good reason, but like it's just sad just the whole point of like having an estranged parent and like I couldn't even imagine myself like going years without talking to either of my parents. That would just be hard to handle.
Oh yeah, I completely agree with you. I do want to clarify. I'm not saying that single mother, and I'm not saying it's just men and boys. Like I believe that the same can be said for girls who are raised without mothers and they don't know how to act. It's just women tend to be more emotional. So you find women more in situations of depression, anxiety, and stuff like that when they're in these situations where men tend to act out more in physical ways and stuff like that. So like I understand that, if a child is raised without a mother or a child is raised without a father, there are consequences on both sides of it. And I think that as you were saying, like the the stuff that children deal with, and that might be why later on in life, like if a child's raised in a home with only one parent and it's not the best relationship too, when they get 18 or when they get 20 or whenever they get out of the house, they may be estranged from their parent. um I actually know someone who was raised in a um single parent home, and she no longer speaks to her mother, and it's because the mother had so many frustrations of being a single parent and she was doing it all by herself, that her she took her frustrations out on her children. And now my friend, her siblings will talk to her mom, but she refuses. And she has said before that the reason why she has so many issues in relationships is because of the way her mother was. And her mother made her so insecure and made her question her worth. And now she can't, you know, for the longest time, she sought that completion through someone else. And she realized that she could only be completed through Jesus, but it still has done a lot of damage with her. And she doesn't date or anything because of that.
Mhm. Yeah, because there's so many years upon years of like emotional damage that needs to be cleaned up. And like I said, I'm glad that she knows her identity in Christ. But like so there's a lot of work I'm sure that needs to be done on that end of things because for years she's been, torn down and like frustration, like you said, has been taken out on her. So it's unfortunate when you hear about stories like that because it is a sad reality, and I just can't even imagine a life like that. Which is why, I guess I feel blessed knowing that like I grew up like you, like in a family where like we're close knitted and like there's love there. There's never been no like this hatred or this like I'm gonna basically tear down my children and make them feel worthless and I just can't even imagine like something like that, but that's why I do these kind of episodes is because like it's a learning experience for me to see that like outside of my little bubble that there is a reality in a world where people have a terrible relationship with their parents and they're even when they're even kids out there right now that are being like verbally abused by their parents and it's just a terrible thought to think of. I just can't imagine, even doing that to like my future children, but it's just it's just unfortunate, but
Yeah,
yeah, it's reality.
yeah, you're
So
right.
So, I do kind of want to lighten the mood a little bit. So, I kind of want to go into this next question. And my next question is this. I feel like many people can define the word family differently nowadays. So, I guess my next question is this. Would you consider people who aren't blood related to you as family?
Oh, absolutely. I have many siblings who are not real siblings. I have one sister who's a blood sister, and the rest of them that I call my sisters or my brothers, like I have brothers and sisters, aunts, uncles, people who I'm like, oh, that's my cousin, and like I just know them from where I work, stuff like that. Like I have plenty of family members, but then I also have my church family and my choir family. And like I think that that is family of a different respect, but I mean it's still family. The choir the like I spend more time with those people than I do like my real family. Like my choir family, and I do call them my choir family, like we are legitimately like a family. I spend more time with them than I do most of my blood family. And like when I go more than one or two, and I'm not talking about 1 or 2 weeks, I'm talking about like, 1 or 2 services. Like if I miss Wednesday, I'm like, I cannot miss Sunday. I miss my people. Or if I miss Sunday, I'm like, I cannot miss Wednesday. I miss my people. Um, I was more devastated during COVID, when our church went all online for, I want to say it was like 6 weeks, 6 Sundays, but it was like 7 weeks or whatever. And I went, like I was by the end of that other week, like I was just tired of it. Like I needed people. I needed my church family in my life. And I needed my church family in my life and stuff. And I didn't have that. But once that started back, it was so much better for me. It was so much like I miss those people. They are my family and I love them. You know? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it definitely makes a lot of sense to me, and I definitely agree with your answer that I feel like there's I feel like there's different versions of families out there. Of course, there's that, blood family, and you hear that quote that like you can't choose your family, which in a way is true when you think about, of course, your blood relatives. I can't choose who my
Yeah.
dad and who my mom is, and you can't either. But we can choose friends that we've been friends with for a long time, or like you said, your church family that that you have in your life to consider as family as well. And then on top of that, whenever you think of like the whole, like if you kind of expand on that, I'm thinking about like brothers and sisters in Christ as well. Like I think of that as like family, like in the body of Christ of fellow believers.
Yeah.
I consider you family because you're a fellow sister in Christ. So I
Okay.
think of you as family. I think of many people that have been on this podcast that aren't blood related as family because they all are fellow believers as well. So I consider everybody at church as my family. I consider of course my family is my family. My close friends that I've been friends with for years upon years. And, so I definitely agree with you that I feel like you can choose people as, that you're friends with, and they can be some people, like you said, that like some of my friends I may see more than I see some of my actual family. Like some of my family I may just see Easter and Thanksgiving, and that's about it. Some people I don't even see until like a big event, like a wedding or unfortunately a funeral. Like it just seems like you see some of your friends more often to where they are more closer, you're more closer to them than to some of your family. So I
Yeah.
definitely agree with that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I definitely I like that. There's a different ways of defining family nowadays because people like to think of like the standard family of like your parents, your siblings, and people that are blood related to you. But I mean I'm sure most people knew that there's ways that you can expound on that definition and like I feel like as long as it's someone that you feel at home with, you feel close to and that you feel is someone that you truly care about and want to see the best for just like you would for your blood family. I feel like if you apply those same not rules, but if you apply that same kind of actions
Yeah.
towards those people, I definitely see it as that they are family too.
Yep. Yep. I agree.
So so I guess moving on into my next question, I think of like there's always someone in the family. I call them the glue of the family, and I'm sure you've heard of that phrase too. So my next question is this: it's kind of a two-parter, depending on how you answer the first question. So, do you feel like you are the glue to your family that keeps everyone together? But if not, is there someone else in your family that you feel like is that glue to your family?
Oh yeah. It's not me. I'm not because there's sometimes when I'm like, I don't feel like dealing with you and your crap, no matter what's going on in your life. Or not, no matter what's going on in my life, I just don't feel like dealing with your crap. But um, that being said, I would say on my mom's side of the family, that glue would definitely be my Aunt Lynn. She makes sure that we get together for my Aunt Lynn and my mom are probably the two, because like my Aunt Lynn gets this stuff together and my mom provides the house for everybody to get together in. So it's like a twofer because um without my Aunt Lynn doing all the cooking and stuff, I don't know that we would get together. And without my mom providing the house, I don't know that we would get together. Um and spend time together. But I mean, we get together for a lot of things, a lot more than just birthdays and Christmas and Thanksgiving and stuff like that. Like we get together for football games, we get together for game night sometimes and stuff like that. So yeah, I would say that it would definitely be my mom and my Aunt Lynn.
Okay, yeah, I actually have a quick question. When you mentioned about your aunt, is this the same aunt that does the one about the Jolly Santa?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did y'all
Yes.
do that this year, by the way?
We didn't. And we thought about it late that night after everybody had left. And I was so sad because it's the first year, like, it was just, we didn't have any new people this year. And so, like, the ones, like, Erica said that she thought about it, but she didn't suggest it because we didn't have any new people. And we were like, hold up. We do it every year, whether we have new people or not. We've just had new people in the family so many years past that it has always been the new people that has been helping with it. But yeah, so it was really sad, but we'll be doing it next year, no matter if we got anybody new or not.
Yeah, I know. Sorry I brought that up. I was just thinking, hold on, this is probably the same aunt that does the Jolly Santa. Yeah, that I love that. Yeah, so I was thinking, yeah, this she's got to be the one because like she's the one leading the way. And, like she'll sing the part and then y'all all sing it back to her. Or like she'll ask the question and it's like, yes, he has something like boots or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
but
bright red suit. So, yeah, so I'm glad to hear that you have more than one glue to the family and they serve their purposes. Like there's a reason why that they are the glue to the family. But before I even answer the question, I kind of have a follow-up question. Do you feel like if you were the glue to the family, do you feel like that there would be like some kind of like some type of pressure to being the glue to the family?
oh, absolutely. It's a big responsibility, which is why I don't want it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just gonna be real. But yeah, I think it is because like you have to, especially my mom's side of the family, that's so big. You have to relay all the information to the people the people in the family, like all the people in the family, make sure everybody knows when we're getting together, what we're doing. who's cooking. You come up to, Aunt Lynn and Mom will get together and talk about who's cooking what and who's bringing what, and we can get these people to bring drinks. We can get these people to bring a dessert, and this person can bring this, and this person can bring this, and Aunt Lynn's gonna bring this because it's what she always brings, and because Aunt Lynn provides most of the food, and Mom's gonna make sure the house is clean, and that the park, and Dad's gonna make sure that the parking is good, and we're gonna make sure that we got plenty of seats, and Dad's gonna cook this. But yes, I would not want to have that responsibility. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely I could see that in a way, how there is a lot of pressure to it because like without you, like would the family divide possibly? Like, if you're the glue and you just stop doing things and you stop holding events, like will the family dynamic be different? So I could definitely see where there that pressure. But I guess to answer the question myself, I guess kind of going back to your like with schooling and all, I thought about like back in the day, like you remember whenever our school supplies used to be like that Elmer's glue, like the white
Oh,
glue,
yeah.
and
Oh,
yeah, and
yeah.
like at first it doesn't get sticky, it's like really white and like liquidy, and then it kind of hardens up. So I'm gonna use this analogy right quick and say that I feel like I'm one of the Elmer glues in our family, like to where um we are a part of like trying to help like make family events and sporting events like happen and stuff like that. But I feel like the super glue is my mom. Like I feel like she's the one that keeps us all together and
Yeah.
makes everything happen. And I feel like without her, that's why like back in 2019 it was hard for me whenever she was going through colon cancer because I felt like without her, it's like that when that super glue is gone, like someone going to pick up the pieces, or are we just going to be like divided? But I feel like there are many Elmer glues in the group to where like we're able to keep some of us together,
Yeah.
but I don't know if we would be able to manage getting all of our family together. It may be a little bit more divisive, sadly, but not out of hatred or anger or nothing like that, just more out of maybe we just all have something in common other than the fact that maybe we all love Christmas and like we maybe get together for Christmas and that's about it. But outside of that, yeah, I feel like I would say that I'm of somewhat of a glue, but not the main glue. So
Okay. I can see
yeah.
that.
So I guess before we finish up this, I do have one more final question, and this is one I feel like we can get through pretty briefly. So the final question is this. Whenever someone is asked what they're thankful for, most people would say their family. So why are you thankful for your family?
I mean, I think it's a lot that we've already covered. I'm thankful for the structure. I'm thankful for the discipline. I'm thankful for the encouragement. I'm thankful that I've had people who have been there. I've been put in these places with these people, and they encourage me when there's no one else there, and I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that I have parents who are still together. I'm thankful that I have parents who, even though we don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, we see eye to eye on the main things. I'm thankful that I have a big family. I'm thankful for the people who are the glue to our family, and I'm thankful for the ones who aren't the glue, the ones who come, because without those other ones, it don't matter if you got glue or not. So I'm thankful. I'm thankful that at 31 years old, I still have my great grandmother who is going to be 93 in a few days. By the time this video is, by the time this podcast is released, she'll have already turned 93. And um, I still have my Aunt Lynn, and I still have both my grandmothers, and I mean, I might not see eye to eye with all of my family members, but I have a lot of them, and I'm very thankful for that. I'm thankful that God has allowed me these people that have helped turn me into who I am today. And I know without any of them in my life, and without any of the things that we've gone through in my life, that I wouldn't be who I am today. They made me me, and I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, I love that. And I definitely, agree with everything that you said because like with me as well, like with my family, they've brought me through a lot of hard stuff, things that whether I'm personally going through, whether we've all went through something together, like with my mom, for example, like we all came stronger together. in that way and like, supported one another and embraced one another. So I feel like definitely, being there for each other and them making me who I am today as well. Like, from when I was a kid, whether I saw something as, tough love, ended up doing me some good. Discipline maybe not wasn't fun to go through, but like it made me who I am today, and it made me someone that thanks my family for that. My parents especially. So I think that with all of that being said, I'm glad that we had this topic about family, and I think that it's just important to kind of talk about the awareness that like there are families out there that maybe don't have the luxury, because I consider what we have the luxury. Like
Oh,
we have the
definitely.
blessing of having a close family and like, people that even though we may not see eye to eye on, but there's still that unconditional love there. So, I'm just I guess it's the whole point of this topic is I guess hopefully bring awareness and hopefully maybe help out a family out of this. So I thank you for, being here today and being a part of just spreading this awareness and talking about families.
Thank you for having me. I hope that if someone sees this that has a strange family or doesn't have family, it's just kind of them by themselves. I hope it'll encourage them to start their own family, whether it be with friends or to get a significant other, a spouse, and that's the way to do it. Significant other turned into a spouse, and then have babies and make your own family. That's important too.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, create your own family, whether that's with a wife, children, friends, all of that. Like, I love that. So, anyways, everybody, I hope that y'all enjoyed this episode. And of course, like I said, listen to the outro to this video because then you'll hear the new website name and like, where you can find my website. So definitely be on the lookout for that. So, anyways, this was a great start to season 5. And I'm just so glad that we started off with a good topic. And I look forward to seeing everyone on the future episodes of Not Your Average Joel. So I will see y'all later and have a great day. Bye.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to another episode of Not Your Average Joe. My podcast is available not only on YouTube, but also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, and Pocket Cast. I also have a Facebook and Instagram page where you can reach out to me. On Facebook, just type in Not Your Average Joel, and you should be able to find my Facebook page. You can find me on Instagram at Not Your Average Joel Podcast. I also now have a website where you can find all of my resources there, along with learning more about who I am and what my podcast is about. You can go to www.notyouraveragejowelpodcast.com. I've been in the world of podcasting for 5 seasons now, and I will never take this opportunity for granted. Thank y'all so much for your support, and I'll catch you on the next episode of Not Your Average Joel. Goodbye.